Welcome to Ready Layer 1, a crypto podcast that focuses on the Near ecosystem. And this week we interviewed Trove Labs, who is the umbrella company for Classy Kangaroo, Good Fortune Feline, and Jump DeFi that's launching soon. Joe, so what did you think about this interview? I realized I didn't know how they were all connected, and at the end of this, I kind of understand how they all work together now.
Yeah, that was a big piece of it. If you're in this ecosystem, you've probably heard of all the different projects, probably separately, maybe somewhat together. But to actually hear them talk about the connection of all of them and to hear the thought that's gone into them was really nice to hear. One of the concerns you always have with projects like this that are, multidimensional and spread out across multiple, project names is you just get concerned of is it too much? Right? Are they trying to overdo it? And they really got into how it all works together and how they're managing the business. It's really very interesting.
Yeah, and not to give too much away for the viewers, but just I thought what was interesting. So you've got Classy Kangaroos, their OG NFT, and they still are going to give value to it. They have the Good Fortune Feline with the NEKO coin. And what was interesting about that was talk about how that's sort of like content generation as well to sort of bring awareness to it. And then you have the Jump DeFi DEX, and it's ambitious, and all the stuff that they say that it will eventually have are really interesting, and I hope they pull it off.
Yeah, it's definitely some very interesting, plans and the innovations that they're trying to bring to the platform. And so I encourage everybody to take a listen.
Real quick, do you guys go by your names? Do you go by David and Brandon, or do you go by?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to dox
call
you.
me whatever you want. No, we're pretty much doxed for sure.
Okay,
yeah, my Twitter name's pretty similar.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I was going to say it is a little tricky though, the whole doxing thing, just around the basis of what we're doing. It sucks to, even if you mean the best, just based on regulations, you need to be tactful about certain things. And we've put a lot of effort into our biz dev infrastructure to make sure that we're doing everything by the book, but it's very, very costly and takes months and months to set up those offshore entities, those foundations, and it's not easy for people to do. So when we encountered those roadblocks, it really made me understand why anonymity is important in crypto.
That's been a theme across almost all projects. Like that, you can do it right, or you can do it fast, but rarely can you do it like both. So people who are putting in time making that like strong foundation are the projects that I'm really interested in. Cause I'm not here for 6 months, I'm not here to come in, whitelist, flip and dip. I'm here to hang out. So if someone's new to Near, they're going to see this. How do we I guess you have several projects going. So do you identify as one, as all three? Are you Trove Labs? What is sort of the way that you would explain your project to someone coming to Near?
Trove Labs is our LLC in the United States, and that acts as our consultation arm. And then also it sort of manages the development of the projects that we founded. So Trove Labs will work with individual teams to help engineer their tokenomic structures and to really help them figure out how to create a real business model that in the Web3 world that uses blockchain technology, that uses fungible tokens or non-fungible tokens. And that's primarily what Trove Labs' role is. We also will invoice as Trove Labs to the projects that we're developing. And that's sort of part of that whole entity structuring that we've done. So that's Trove Labs. And we also have our own individual projects that take up the bulk of our time. And we've been developing in Near protocol since the beginning of 2022. And Jerry, you've been with us every step of the way. So shout out to that. The way that we structured our projects in Near protocol was tactful, intentful. Started with the Classy Kangaroos, which is a small collection of just 550 NFTs. And the intent for the Classy Kangaroos was to create our early evangelist community, a community of strong supporters that was going to be with us every step of the way in our broader development journey on Near. And in return, they were going to be rewarded big time for their support. And so far, we've been able to execute on that pretty well. The next phase of that plan was NEKO and Good Fortune Felines, which rolled out, I believe, early March. And the Good Fortune Felines NEKO is sort of our phase 2 for growth. And what NEKO does is it introduced the first meme coin on Near. So really trying to fill that ambassador to Near protocol, be what Samo is on Solana. We wanted to bring that same energy to Near protocol and give Near something that the entire community can sort of rally behind. But then also for more of a substantive kind of contribution to Near protocol, we're also working to be the hub of the creator economy on Near. So we're making educational content about Near, DeFi, and NFTs on Near, and using popular social media platforms like TikTok and soon to be YouTube to get that content out there, and actually paying creators in NEKO to make that content and paying our viewers to watch it in our Learn to Earn movement.
Nice, man. So I liked a lot of that, and that was really good. That's the first time I've heard you lay it out very succinctly, and I'm thank you. I'm like, oh, cool, that makes sense. And I'm just gonna say two things, and Joe, if you want to jump in, I was just gonna say the Classy Kangaroo mint to Good Fortune Felines, super smooth. Loved how you guys did that. I was like, oh, that worked really great. And then I'm looking really forward to the Jump DEX, because there's some stuff that are going to follow up and ask you about like staking NFTs and all that kind of decentralized aspects of like the platform.
So what's interesting to me, where the guys started is with the small collection and then moving into Good Fortune. Was it always the plan to have two separate projects where like they feel, I know they're connected in a way, but like they feel very separate, the different discords and everything else? Was that always the intention, or as you went along you felt like we want to kind of have a little bit of its own thing, own entity?
Yeah, so the separation is very intentional. We want to create separate entities for each individual project. They all have their own individual risk profiles, and their entities are structured in certain ways to accommodate those. So there's no risk of any sort of contagion or anything between the various projects. But also, just as you're building out communities, you sort of want to create those separate community elements that can grow for their own reason.
Cool.
So Jump DeFi, it was a bit of a rebrand about a month ago from just the Jump DEX to Jump DeFi, because it's an ecosystem of protocols. So there's a lot more than just a DEX, but that is our sort of our final phase in your protocol of our development journey. At least probably not our final phase, but it is our kind of our culmination of everything we've been working towards with Classy Kangaroos, with the Good Fortune Felines and NEKO, as we are showing the community that we can build and we can develop top of the line products, and that's what Jump DeFi is going to be.
Awesome, man. I like the new branding. Sorry, Brandon, did I cut you off?
I was just probably going to add that, like you said, are they all separate projects? We kind of, started off with the Classy Kangaroos and the Good Fortune Felines. We wanted to prove that we could make those projects, something that's respectable, something that, takes in input from our community, and show that we can do that before moving on to something a little more ambitious like the Jump DeFi platform.
And it was also how we were able to gather our team members to then execute on Jump DeFi, which requires a big dev team that actually knows what they're doing. And so we were able to get rid of a lot of the kinks and roadblocks or in the early stages with these easier applications. Then from there, get rid of the people that can't perform, have a rock solid team, and get to work. And luckily that's how things have played out. Also, just to note, if it looks like Brandon's in a broom closet, we live at my house and he's in a little storage room, so we don't have too much sound.
And I actually asked him to turn around so he could use the light from the window. So don't worry. Once I edit this, we'll probably be cropped like here. So don't worry, I won't be doing it.
Brandon's not in a broom closet.
I am in a broom closet. But going back at what David was saying, it really was important to develop those relationships and get those resources so that we actually could, have the developers we needed, that we trusted to make something like, an actual AMM DEX platform.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. I mean, so it kind of goes into one of my early questions, is that you did have a little bit of trouble when you released the coin flip, and you kind of ran into a couple of roadblocks here and there. How did that actually inform everything? And, are you really a full team, or are you outsourcing everything from there?
Yeah, so actually those early roadblocks was probably where we learned one of our most like our biggest lessons learned as non-technical founders developing in Web3 is people can tell you one thing, but it might not actually be true. And so you really need to trust but verify, and understand how to trust but verify. You need to be able to go through the GitHub repository line by line and confirm that they're not feeding you a line of bull, which is what happened to us in the early stages. And as far as how our structure for teams look, we have a Hackachain is our development partner for Jump DeFi, and they're also who helped us with the coin flip. And so they've been with us for a long time, but Zhao, their co-founder, is our CTO, and so nice. he is on the team and overseeing the development through Hackachain. We also have our lead developer on our core team, Eric, who is also the co-founder of House of Nephilim, and he's on our core team, and he's one of the most talented full stack developers that we've ever met too. So that's what our situation looks like. We also have the core team members like Christina as our head of PR and hiring. Community managers and all of that too.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, everyone's going to go through all these roadblocks. I mean, even Aurora is going, like even the big chains near Aurora, Ref Finance, they've all had these like things that have happened. Right. They've all risen above and kept going forward. You know what I mean? And that's like, the space is so wild that way. It's like pretty interesting to see. So let's take one of the projects, NEKO. And let's just kind of break that one down, because Classy Kangaroos, we can talk about that one too, but it kind of seems like the NEKO and the Jump DeFi are the two that are like really popping right now. So with NEKO, it's a meme coin. The most important thing about a meme coin is that a lot of people use it, and it becomes sort of like a community driven coin, that there's a lot of community around it. What are you guys doing to help build the community?
Yeah, and just sort of for Classy Kangaroos at this point, we are just delivering on that promise to deliver value to them. And so every Classy Kangaroo received a free Good Fortune Feline NFT, like you had noted, where they reached a floor price of around 20 near at all-time highs. So it's like a great ad. And then also the Classy Kangaroos are going to be able to be staked in the Jump NFT staking platform to earn 0.5% of the Jump token supply, which is pretty large when you consider it's only 550 Classy Kangaroos. So the Kangs are still, still the heart of everything, and they're still getting, hooked up bigger than anyone else for everything that's being produced. Nice. But yeah, moving into NEKO and the Good Fortune Felines. The Good Fortune Feline NFT collection is the foundation of the NEKO community. And in return, they receive 10% of the NEKO token supply. And yes, NEKO token is framed as the first meme coin on Near, but that's because the educational content that we're creating is meant to reach new users, and that's targeted through TikTok and soon to be many other platforms. And for whatever reason, new users love meme coins, and so it's sort of like they're going to be introduced. The first thing that these new users are going to see is our educational content. Then they can come to our community that uses a meme coin to generate that hype. But of course, it's much more.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I like the idea you're making creative content. Obviously, that's like my favorite stuff. And then the educational content. TikTok, your TikTok, you've got some great stuff on there, and the engagement on TikTok.
You guys too.
We just started.
I saw that. I was so hyped when I saw it on my FYP. I was like, yeah, let's go.
it's frightening. The TikTok world is like, I feel like a definite crypto boomer when I'm in TikTok. I'm like, what's going on here? But so how have you found working with other creators with the NEKO? Have you found a really good, like, do people understand the vision? Or like creators like, oh, absolutely, give us NEKO, we'll create some educational content? Like, what's that been like?
Yeah, so I was actually a crypto content creator before I began my journey as a Web3 founder. Pretty small scale. It's on TikTok, around 9,000 followers, but was one of the, it's not a lot by any means, but I was able to be somewhat of a trusted voice for a few things, pretty niche DeFi related stuff, and also like Solana NFTs last year was kind of my bread and butter. And so I built relationships with a lot of great creators on TikTok that a lot of them started after me and sort of kind of looked up to me for certain things, and I built relationships with them, and now we're able to onboard them pretty easily. And yeah, they're very excited about the vision. At first, it's a little bit difficult because they need to learn about Near protocol to be able to make content about Near. So there's a pretty big crash course about just a ton of the basics that they need to become well-rounded on before they're able to, to make really, really good content. So we're still in that stage a bit, but we're improving all the time. And once I can get my head above water a little bit more, we'll keep adding more structure, and we have some really exciting partnership announcements with sort of the education and the learn to earn that's much broader, that will be announced soon too.
Nice. Yeah, I think the connecting with like Near, I find to be the biggest impact when I talk to people about it is just being able to get it like easily and then start using it. Once you have it, the whole system, the Aurora Plus, Rainbow Bridge, Near, oh yeah, so sweet. It's like, I'm like, this is wild. It's just getting into that ecosystem I find to be the biggest hurdle to a non-crypto.
And
native.
We've actually made some exciting progress with that. Not sure how much I'm supposed to talk about this, but
we can cut anything. If you say something and you're like, actually, I should have said that, we'll just cut it out.
I think we're all good. But you're right. It's difficult to get Near as a U.S. resident, and so we're partnering with Banksa, which is a payment on-ramp and off-ramp provider that is partnered with the biggest centralized exchanges like Binance and KuCoin, and I've used Banksa for a long time when I was pretty new into crypto, where I could get on my KuCoin, which isn't connected to my checking account, and could buy crypto using my checking account, and it would be deposited into my KuCoin wallet without any KYC through KuCoin. And we're partnered with them to do the same thing through Jump DeFi. So you'll be able to get on Jump DeFi and buy Near directly from your bank account through our platform, which is a big step in my opinion. That's a huge step. Yeah,
because I'll use it.
Yeah,
like right now for me, if I want to buy it, I'm like, I gotta go here and then I gotta go here, and I'm into this stuff. So cool, that's good. I'm glad to hear that.
It's a big feat for DeFi, right? I mean, inherently DeFi is a bit trickier, and there's so many steps to the onboarding process. So I think this is a big improvement.
Yeah,
that's one of the core values behind Jump DeFi, is making it more simple, more intuitive for easier onboarding for new users. And that's also NEKO is trying to teach them about a lot of these complicated concepts that they're not familiar with. And, we have that information from personal experience. We want to share it with other content creators and then get that content out and share it with the public.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really good to hear, man. And the DeFi, you want to be there because the last few months hasn't been great for centralized exchanges.
yeah. And DeFi has shown that the protocols have worked. Under collateralized loans have worked, and been very, very proud of that. Also, one of the really cool synergetic components of NEKO and Jump DeFi, for instance, is we're able to create all of this educational content about basic DeFi components like swapping, yield farming, participating in an IDO, NFT staking, creating your own token. And all of this is done on the Jump DeFi platform, but it's educational content that NEKO is making. So we're kind of naturally marketing the Jump DeFi platform while we're making true educational content. So I think that's a pretty great synergy that we have between the projects.
Yeah, and I think that's such a good like overlapping, because like I think Near, it is a really great platform, but the marketing so like I feel like the Near Foundation and stuff is really focused on developers and building like the pipes and rails and the roads of the system, and not so much like spending a lot of money and time into the average, like just onboarding a user. And now they're starting to sort of pivot that way, but that's good that you're filling that need, and we're trying to do that as well. And I think the more as many people who start doing that as possible is great.
Exactly.
Yeah. Joe, I'm sorry.
It's fine. Can we stay on NEKO for a second? So is the plan, as when NEKO becomes live and you do the full IDO and everything, do you eventually expect that like NEKO is actually traded on different exchanges? Does it become a full-fledged coin? Or is the idea that it's always purely this auxiliary type of coin where it doesn't have necessarily a backed value to it? It's just exchanged accordingly.
Yeah, no, it will have back value, and we've been making some big strides on that. So near protocol, we're always running into new ways that things need to be innovated, and from a development standpoint, there's lots of little hiccups that may arise just from something not being created yet. And
sure.
one thing that has been difficult is ref finance is obviously the DEX on near. Right now, and we're going to list NEKO on there, and so ref doesn't accommodate token taxes natively. So if you look at PancakeSwap or Uniswap, any of the large AMMs on any other EVM compatible blockchain that can have a token tax as a token utility. Yeah. Well, the main DEXs accommodate that, and Ref just hasn't yet. So we submitted a proposal, and now we're working through with Ref to figure out the best possible way to implement this tax. And so we're sort of adjusting our code a little bit, and so we can become the standard for other projects that want to utilize a token tax as well. So we're in process to get everything figured out with Ref Finance, so we can launch a liquidity pool there, and of course at that time it will have a market value. And on our main launch will be through Jump DeFi, and as we roll out phase 1 onto mainnet of Jump DeFi, which is what will consist mainly of the NFT staking platform and the IDO launchpad, NEKO will be the first or one of the first tokens to IDO from the Jump pad, and at that time, everything will be live, and market will decide what the value is, of course.
Sure.
Nice. Okay, so yeah, Joe, that's a great question. And the tokenomics, man, liquidity pool tokenomics are like such a hard mathematical. Like, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you don't just like farm and dump a coin, right? Like, it's really hard. And I think the tax is a great idea. So that's like essential. So I'm curious to see how that will perform. But we've already kind of blended into the Jump DeFi, and there's a couple areas that, just for our listeners, I kind of want to break out, right? There's like if someone doesn't know a lot, like we're talking like the lingo, like I get it. There's a jump, so the Jump DeFi looks like it's a couple different parts. What are the different areas that you're focusing on? By that, I mean, there's like an IDO, there's like, can you make your own coins? There's going to be liquidity pools. Like what's.
Yeah. So Jump DeFi is intended to be a one-stop platform where users can come to do any of their core DeFi needs. Aside from lending, we do not feature lending, but everything else, I would say Jump DeFi is going to cover it. And also we have developer tooling that also lowers the barrier of entry for developers on here. So it's a single protocol that consists of a bunch of different products, or a single platform that consists of a bunch of different products that sort of kind of just meet the needs of your everyday user. So you don't have to expect a new or even an experienced user to navigate to 3 different platforms to do a token swap, to participate in an IDO and do some NFT staking. So that's, kind of that step forward to improving the onboarding process, where new users can just go to one platform to access everything.
Nice.
But as far as the breakout of the products, so there's the Jump DEX, which is the automated market maker, where you'll do all the token swaps, liquidity pools, and yield farming.
Okay, so let me just break that up further. So you're going to have the Jump DEX, and so that you'll go to it and you'll be like, okay, there's maybe like a NEAR and a NEKO pool, and you can swap the two, or you might even have other tokens as well, or what? All sort of NEAR tokens?
Yeah, it's a fully permissionless. So we'll of course have all of the majors, where all of your stablecoin pools, NEAR, and even like Wrap Solana, stuff like that. We'll have that liquidity, and then we're going to be targeting developers that aren't as necessarily well off as I guess the expectation is for developers on NEAR, because if you want to create your own yield farm on Ref, you need like $50,000 worth of liquidity to put forward in order to make that happen. And that's sort of is very limiting to the majority of entrepreneurs. So with the Jump DEX, you'll be able to create your own liquidity pool and your own yield farm fully permissionlessly. So that's again makes it a lot easier for developers. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, so is there gonna be a limit at all for a liquidity pool, or could someone start a liquidity pool with like 10 near?
Yeah, so there won't be minimums, but there will be a verified section where everyone will go to, and then there will be sort of the permissionless section. And if you're just creating a liquidity pool with only $10 in it, it's going to be really hard to see, you know, towards the bottom of the page, and no one's going to be really going to it.
Yeah. Cool. So that's the one part, the DEX. What would be the next part?
Yeah, and I guess one of the critical features to the Jump DEX that we're really excited about is removing one of the, I'd say, most annoying steps to the near DeFi onboarding experience, which is wrapped near. So when you get onto Refinance, you first need to turn your near into wrapped near in order to use it on the platform. You need to turn it into an NEP 141 token, and we've actually created a way where that's not required. And so you'll be able to use near natively on Jump DeFi, which is pretty cool. And I'd have to have our CTO go into all of the technicals behind that, or else I'd just sound like an idiot. But it's, I think, one of the most exciting things that we're doing with the DEX, because anecdotally, even when I tried to swap on Ref for the first time, I was genuinely confused about having to convert into wrapped near. And we've had a lot of people share that. So when you lose 20% of users at every step of the onboarding process, that's a big leap forward.
Exactly. Like, I just want to go to jumpdefi.xyz. I can then I can get near on it right away.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the goal. And then I can then swap that near if I want, or I can send it to my wallet. I can stake it on a validator. I could go buy an NFT. Doesn't matter.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Cool.
But so the Jump DEX will be a pretty familiar decentralized exchange experience, but it does have these innovations in it that really help with the onboarding experience on near DeFi. And then we also have invisible swaps, which leverage the Jump DEX backend, the swapping and the liquidity pools, and it creates some really cool payment solutions for like NFT marketplaces and individual Web3 projects. So let's say you're on an NFT marketplace and you want to buy a Good Fortune Feline with NEKO that you've been earning by staking your Good Fortune Feline. Well, you'll be able to directly from the NFT marketplace buy that Good Fortune Feline with NEKO, and the Jump DEX backend will swap the NEKO into near, pay the seller of the NFT in near, and you as the buyer just bought an NFT with NEKO. And as you know, projects utilize NFT staking more and more, this is a really cool way to add utility to the token and drive more demand and use for it as well.
I was going to ask about that. I think this is, for me, one of the more interesting things that you guys are really doing, because technically it makes a ton of sense to me, to actually have this future, but nobody's really done this yet. So did you have this idea first of like, oh, how do we, not have to like show wrap near, or like, how did you guys come to this point of like, one, not having to go to wrap near, but also then having invisible swaps as a feature to externally?
Yeah, just being power users, DeFi power users, NFT trading power users.
Yeah, just enough of it.
Yeah, you do stuff enough, and it's like, man, this sucks. If I, as a pretty seasoned DeFi user, get hung up on something, sure, I kind of want to fix that, right? So that's sort of the thought process, and just the little geeky optimizations that probably, in our opinion, do carry some pretty cool value attached to them.
No, it really does. I mean, the idea that you can then leverage other tokens across anywhere within the ecosystem. start to really change, I think, like you said, not only the value of some of those tokens, but how then, I think marketplaces work, period, right?
Yeah.
Like right now, near NFTs are very stale. They're, the volume is extremely low. But, I could see where something like that, where if I could use different tokens and people might perceive things differently, they say, oh, this is 10 near, or this is 10,000 NEKO, but I have 4 million NEKO in my wallet. Well, even it's that psychology of everything, right? And so, yeah, I think that's a really different proposition for everybody.
And what else does that do? Well, that drives more volume to these more obscure liquidity pools. And so you get more people that want to partake in those liquidity pools to gain access onto those fees that are being generated. And so it's a positive feedback loop for a lot of things in more of the small cap realm.
Yeah, I'm just wrapping my head around. That's a really cool. I like that, because I often think like, okay, why make a token? Like anytime an NFT makes a token, I'm like, why? And so I think you've got the tax, and then you've got the ability to buy stuff with it. That's cool. I'm excited to see this. Okay, cool. I love, this is why I like doing the podcast, because I started at 1A and then it starts getting, as 50, 45 minutes. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Nice.
And the invisible swaps do apply to individual projects as well. And so some of the primary use cases that we've seen so far is enabling NFT projects to sell merchandise, and the project ecosystem participants can use the native token to buy the merch. And and of course you need to actually, merch has hard costs, right? So then a portion of that native token will be converted into stable coins or near or whatever, and then the project team actually can cover the cost of the merchandise.
USN.
So we're I think that's another really exciting way that you're using AMM technology to help benefit Web3 projects in a way that really hasn't been done before.
Yeah, sure. So when you are doing those swaps, so it's incumbent on let's say we'll use the marketplace example, right? So I'm buying an NFT. Is it the choice of the marketplace to set what the swap is, or is it built into your API where I, as the seller, would be able to have the option of how I want it swapped?
You as I guess that sort of front end optimization or qualities would probably just need to be communicated with individual marketplaces. Ultimately, the experience that we're envisioning right now is that buyers will be able to have a selection of their choice for what they want to purchase an NFT with, and so long as liquidity exists on the Jump DEX, then the transaction will go through. But there's a lot of refinements that we're going to need to work out with sort of the end user marketplaces that will kind of answer a lot of those questions.
Sure.
But moving into some more of, there's a pretty long list of stuff here, so try not to talk too much about any one product. But then there's also the Jump Pad, which is an IDO launchpad, a token launchpad that facilitates initial DEX offerings, which is public sales and also private sales as well. So pretty basic there, but the initial DEX offerings we use allocation tiers. And so the quantity of jumps that you have will sort of decide the amount of tokens that you can purchase in any of the IDOs. But some of the big benefits to the Jump Pad as an IDO platform compared, and really its ability to take a majority of Launchpad market share, is the basis of sustainability. If you look at a bear market scenario, a lot of these IDO launchpads that offer nothing else, they're not bringing in any revenues. No one really wants to launch a token that much, and there's not as much attention from the market on IDOs when they happen. And so as these other platforms, really their tokens trend to zero, that eliminates a lot of the reason to use them in the first place. So in addition to that, the amount of visibility gain that the projects have that are hosting the IDOs receive is pretty big when you think, well, Jimmy comes to Jump DeFi to trade some near. on the Jump DEX, he's going to see the latest IDO and decide that looks pretty dang cool. I want to participate in that, versus maybe Skyward Finance that all they have is IDOs, and you have to go there to participate in IDOs to know what's going on.
So what are the mechanics that your Jump pad are going to use for IDOs? You mentioned something about the Jump coin as well.
Yeah. So it's a pretty simple model that follows actually BSC pad pretty closely. We really like the mechanics of a BSC pad. It's a pretty dang popular launch pad on obviously the Binance Smart Chain, but we use allocation tiers, and there's 6 different allocation tiers that range from bronze to diamond, and your allocation tiers are determined by the quantity of Jump that you have. Well, there's a bit, you need to first stake your Jump into the X Jump pool, and you'll receive X Jump tokens. And all of the baseline platform utilities are tied to the X Jump pool. But once you stake your Jump in the X Jump pool, you'll be able to then deposit those X Jump tokens into the Jump pad vault to determine the allocation size, the amount of tokens that you can purchase from the IDOs. Okay. And so if you have 100 X Jump staked, you might be in the bronze category. And if you have 1,000 X Jump staked, you might be in the gold category, and you can buy more tokens in the IDOs. But the plan for our IDOs, as far as just selling, it will be based on a fixed rate. We plan on doing fixed rate sales. And nice. After the allocation round is completed, if the IDO doesn't sell out, a first come first serve round will happen after.
Nice. And then if someone does an IDO with the Jump pad, then they could pretty much go into a liquidity pool on the Jump DeFi on the DEX.
Exactly. Yeah, they could
Nice. Yeah.
they could create their own fungible token on the Jump Token Laboratory, which we'll talk about next.
Oh, jump in there.
Yep. And then do an IDO, and then do a yield farm after that. But there'd be a few more steps along the way. IDOs, they need to be approved by us. So you can't just IDO on our platform. There's an approval process there. So that isn't permissionless per se. But the Jump Token Laboratory is, and Brandon, I don't know if you wanted to dive into this at all. Awesome.
Yeah, I can take this one. Yeah, so the Jump Token Laboratory, something we've been trying to do is kind of allow other projects and entrepreneurs to enter into decentralized finance. And like you said, why is this project, why are they creating a token? We want to enable certain entrepreneurs and projects to customize and create their own NEP 141 tokens in minutes with no coding, but we also want to help them based on templates and token contracts that we already have that are based on sustainable models that we've seen and worked with in the past. So developers can accelerate, these utility adding tokens while saving lots of money by adopting these contracts without having to find reliable developers, without having to spend a lot of money and time on development and
audits.
And audits as well. That's also very important. And then we're basically allowing them to have their tokens that do truly add value to their projects. And it's something that's definitely needed.
Yeah, so drawing on our experience as tokenomics consultants, we've gained a pretty good wealth of knowledge, in different token economies for certain applications. So we're able to offer these template token contracts at a very low cost to developers that do feature certain value add utilities for various project types. And these entrepreneurs now have probably the cheapest access to launching a token on a blockchain in a way that actually has some meat to the bones of the tokenomics, using Near protocol instead of having to hire a dev, find a reliable dev that knows Rust, that knows Near, to make your token contract, get it audited. You come to the Jump Token Laboratory, and in a couple minutes, you have your own fully customized token.
Cool.
That's really good. Who owns the contract with those? You guys, or you actually hand over the contract?
Yeah, we would, I guess, probably own the IP in some ways, but they would own the token. It's all theirs. Yeah, it's completely passed on to them.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, being as the Jump DeFi platform is going to be open source. I mean, those are open source as well, but we're providing them and we're deploying it for them. And we, assume that the projects are going to want small customizations or different, parameters that are more specific to what they're doing than just a generic custom template. But yeah,
so it's not the same as like an NFT launch pad where, those launch pads are often, it is, a singular contract that then people are building on top of. You guys are actually doing separate contracts for each set of tokens.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's great. That's great.
Joe, I'm telling you, this is like one of those, we always talk, I'm like, Joe just has to do like a dev podcast that I'll know nothing about, but like, it'd be like you, your CTO, the houses of Nephilim.
Oh, yeah.
I've been buying those left and right. I love them. Nephilim. I'm like, these people know how to do staking. I was like, they're doing
yes, they
right.
do.
Eric's brilliant.
So basically, I want to get Joe to talk to them. I'm gonna not. That's gonna be. It's gonna be the least talking I've ever done in a podcast. But I seriously think that's important because like the security of stuff, how this all works, contracts. I know there's like, do they own it? Do they not?
Our podcast, man, because that's what we've been focusing on lately. We've had like Antisocial Labs, we've had Hackachain and House of Nephilim, and that's all we talk about is from a developer's point of view, what differentiates Near Protocol from other layer ones and a ton of other stuff that has been, I think, really valuable for the community. So we've been loving those spaces lately.
Because I was gonna say, is there another part to the Jump DeFi?
Yeah, there sure is.
Couple more.
Go for it, right? Yeah.
So we have the Jump NFT staking platform, which will be live here shortly in phase 1 development, and we're trying to be the portal between decentralized finance and NFT technology. And there's a lot of applications that NFTs have that add real value in a pure decentralized finance sense. And we really try to showcase that within our platform. But the Jump NFT staking platform primarily offers NFT staking as a service. So project teams will be able to come to our NFT staking platform and list their collection, and they'll benefit from triple token rewards with our partnership through Akova NFT marketplace.
Oh, you guys are working with Akova. Okay.
Yes, yep, we sure are. And there's a lot of the invisible swap utilities. They're going to be who we go to market with first through all of that stuff through our partnership. So yeah, we're partnered with them, and our NFT staking platform, they will be providing emissions as well. And so people will earn triple token rewards by depositing their NFTs on our platform. They'll earn Jump token, they'll earn a Akova token, and the NFT projects token as well. And that allows the recipients to earn more tokens than they would on any single platform. And it's better for the people giving the tokens because we can provide less tokens for a more of an impact with 3 parties involved. So just the basis of NFT staking as a service, it's a really big advantage there. But NFT staking, we think, has a lot more importance than is currently recognized. And I know you said, when a project introduces that, I think the tokens are worthless, right? But I think if you
I didn't say. Well.
Yeah, sorry. I don't want to miss. I don't want to miss.
But I can get a little.
Yeah,
I can get a little curmudgeonly on tokens. But no, I never think anything's. I don't think anything's worthless. I'm just saying, like, the worth of something is so abstract in this whole Web3 crypto space that like it's still getting figured out.
And I think that's the common thought from the majority of people, is that a lot of the time the best thing to do is farm and dump this token. But we believe that it's really like the best way to vest tokens is to use NFT technology. And so if you don't think about it so much as I'm earning tokens because of this NFT, it's like this NFT is my access pass to an allocation of tokens. And well, if maybe I was just going to receive a vested allocation of tokens in a traditional sense, okay, well, those tokens are locked in some smart contract and they're not doing any good, and I can receive a trickling of tokens based on whatever the vesting period is, and I can decide I can sell these tokens right away, or I can hold them. Well, it's NFT staking. I own the NFT that is the access pass for these tokens. And so I can actually sell the NFT in a highly liquid market instead of those tokens being locked in some vesting contract. The value lives inside of the NFTs. And that secondary market that forms, well, there's royalties now that create a new revenue source for the project team that didn't exist before. So there's a lot of advantages to, I think, thinking of it as we're using NFTs to distribute tokens to people as opposed to just NFT staking from I think what people normally think of it as.
Man, I've been talking about this lately, is that like NFTs are super, like they're not being used to their full potential yet. And this is a use case where you're already starting to level up where current NFTs are, which is really good to hear. Because like Classy Kangaroos, you can like reward, you can have super fans through an NFT who then have their access pass to access to something, and you're actually targeting the fans or the supporters.
Yeah.
I'm glad people are starting to do that, because there hasn't been a lot of that right now.
Yeah. And it does also, you get this community component too, that is completely new and super powerful for these early stage startups. It can also be really hard to deal with and sometimes toxic when you have all of these sort of unexperienced investors that a lot of the time are more interested in flipping. When you're a new startup, that you essentially have people participating in what used to be restricted to like venture capital funds and these you know established investors. Now you have people kind of getting the same rewards, but they don't really understand it yet, and the market's trying to kind of catch up with the technology at this point, which is really a good place to be in.
Agree. And like how you just said that, like the access to early stage venture, at least in the US, it's very prohibitive for most people.
Yeah.
So NFTs can be used as that. House of Nephilim, they're doing like a reward based, right? And am I saying that? I swear, Nephilim.
Yeah, you're saying saying it right. Nephilim.
I gotta like.
We don't know either,
dude. Every time I'm like Nephilim, but they're actually, so they give like a percentage to their holders.
Yep.
And it's got a business plan around it. Like that's what I've been waiting for. And so then you can have your NFTs that target tokens that can be used in that same way. Oh, all right.
Yeah. And so we're showcasing this technology with our individual projects too. The NEKO airdrop, well, it will use NFTs. And so all of the people that receive the NEKO airdrop will actually receive an NFT airdrop. And then it's up to them to stake that NFT and earn the airdrop allocation over time, instead of this mass of inflationary pressure hitting the market all at once. It's slowly vested to people and if people want to get rid of their airdrop allocation, good, they just sell it on the secondary market and it causes no price impact to the underlying token. The real investors that want exposure to that token, well, they'll go and buy the NFT from you and they'll earn as much of that airdrop allocation as possible. And we're doing the same thing with Jump DeFi as well with the airdrop NFTs. So we're trying our best to showcase the real capabilities of NFTs within decentralized finance. And we'll kind of close on the last true product offering, which is again a purely utility driven NFT within our platform. And those are fast pass NFTs. So I guess I don't know if we want to dive right into this, but
go on. Like you have my attention.
when you claim rewards from the Jump DeFi platform, you don't claim Jump, you claim locked Jump, and those tokens are distributed to you linearly over 30 days. And this is our way of providing these high level of emissions that are required to get people to provide liquidity on a platform, but doing it in a responsible manner that rewards the tokens over time and eliminates the true inflationary burdens that we face. So normally when you claim tokens, you'll receive them over 30 days, or you can mint a fast pass NFT, which is cost you 5% of the amount of locked Jump tokens. And so if I have 100 locked Jump, for 5 Jump, I can mint a fast pass NFT, and my emissions rate for my locked Jump doubles. So I get my tokens twice as fast, and I would get them over a period of 15 days instead of 30 days. And cool. And that's using NFT technology to to kind of increase a DeFi platform, you're generating a brand new source of revenues, which is deposited into the XJump pool, just like every other product on the platform is generating revenues that are being deposited into the XJump pool, and you're able to gain access to those revenues by staking your jump. And so there's real reason to get your jump as fast as possible, so you can earn as much of the platform revenue as fast as possible too. So It makes a lot of sense for our power users.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, you guys are doing a lot of really conscientious things to increase sustainability. How much of the initial LPs are you guys contributing to? Are you putting forward to kind of get the ball rolling?
As far as initial liquidity, I'd say relatively low percentage-wise compared to maybe a lot of the other platforms that were born in the heart of the bull market. But I think we need to, as users, start to get more comfortable with sustainability, and understand that just because some these really inflationary measures, were the norm during the heart of the bull market, that might not actually be the best plan for a healthy platform, for a token that people want to hold long term.
Sure.
And so it's a balancing act there. But the main initial jump liquidity items will be the initial farm offering, the initial DEX offering, and the jump airdrop. So the majority of the initial liquidity will be within there, but also the straight emissions for NFT staking and yield farming, of course, are much higher in the beginning stages, and then they slowly taper down. And that's all listed in the white paper.
Very cool.
Yeah, I think there's something about just sustainability that, crypto for the last 5, 7, whatever years, it's just been degen heavy speculation. And don't get me wrong, it's super fun. But I'm hoping, and I don't know if it's still got more years of degen, but I'm hoping this pivot's happening where projects start to think the way you're thinking. Like, you don't need a massive liquidity pool until you can successfully do a smaller liquidity pool without it getting drained, right? Like I'm all for that. Like, and I think Near kind of as a collective is doing that, sort of like look at USN 2.0. They didn't just dive in there like Terra Luna. They were like, whoa, let's pull it back, and
that was smart.
Very smart. But I think there's I'm hoping that's sort of like an ethos within the Near ecosystem, and it seems to be that way. So that's cool that you guys are approaching it that way too.
Yeah, and we're trying to help as many other projects as possible when we consult with them, and we've definitely been able to influence sustainability in our ecosystem, especially with Near NFTs, which has been great to see.
That's awesome. This is hopefully super informative for audience members. I know you guys have been on a lot of spaces, but it's nice to actually go a little bit deeper. I think it's hard to talk on a space, right? I guess if you, from all your experience that you've had so far, from Classy Kangaroos to now, even in a bear market, what is one thing that you would pass along to someone who's starting a project of any type right now in crypto?
Yeah, I would say stay flexible and get comfortable with failing, because it's a big part of the journey. And as long as your failures are end up as valuable learning lessons, then you can do very well. But I guess if you're coming to crypto to build, make sure your plan makes sense and it generates revenues. I'd say in most cases, if your business plan wouldn't work with it outside of crypto, it probably wouldn't work inside crypto either. So it's got to be able to stand on its own feet. And once you can confirm that your project stands on its own feet, then there's tons of applications where having a fungible token is a huge value add to a ton of different protocol types.
Sure.
And yeah, don't be afraid to be a pioneer. That's what we're doing in Near right now. It's a really, really cool to be in that spot where you're helping kind of build just the early infrastructure.
No, that's great. We're kind of piggyback on that. I love the idea of being comfortable with failing and just learning from that and going fast, because that is what has to happen. do you guys have a kind of runway in mind, both financially maybe and just kind of mentally, of where you need to hit certain milestones as you go, especially something as ambitious as Jump DEX, to make sure that you are continuing?
Yeah, so we've have all of our phase 1 development completely funded. So we're doing great there. Our smart contracts are actually being audited right now. So we're getting very close to being able to go live into market, which is fantastic. But yeah. Our phase 2 development, we are still in the fundraising zone, and so we have a bit more funding to go there. But the phase 2 dev, which is the Jump DEX AMM, so the DEX itself is essentially phase 2, is on a longer development timeline. So we still have plenty of time to reach our goals, and any sort of initial DEX offering would completely take care of our development runway, a couple fold.
That's great.
Nice. So my like recap now of what I've got. All right. So here's how I would explain your project now. Trove Labs, correct? That's the umbrella. Yeah. And you've got a couple projects under it. Classy Kangaroos, OG project you're still giving value to. You've given value to that got to go into Good Fortune Felines, which is kind of an NFT that you're also using in a cool way that also makes it part of a coin, a meme coin, NEKO. And the NFT almost has some representation of that too, which we discussed, which is really cool. And that's also sort of your branding, creative, educational arm.
Yep.
Which then helps educate people into the Jump DeFi, which is a sort of system of several applications in the end, which will have like a DEX, an IDO launchpad, NFT staking.
Yep.
And then really importantly is people are able to buy near easily in the States on it.
Yes.
So if people can get in and buy near. So when everyone's like, how do I buy it? I don't have to be like, hey, get a VPN, get a burner computer. I don't
just head over to Jump DeFi.
Just head over to jumpdefi.xyz. That's how I describe a project now. Am I kind of close? There's more obviously nuances, but this is for like the broad stroke people listening.
That was very good. And Justin, I kind of have a deeper idea of timeline for the phase 1 development. Want to give our auditors plenty of time to go through those contracts and give our development team time to make those changes. But as soon as the phase 1 of Jump DeFi is live, the infrastructure will be ready for NEKO token to have its debut launch and have the IDO. We'll launch the initial farm offering as well, which there's a lot of things that as soon as Jump DeFi goes live, NEKO really does too. And we have our Jump DeFi Discord and Telegram opening here within the next 48 hours. And we're going to work very hard to sort of combine the hype of the Jump DeFi launch with the NEKO launch and try to generate some really great organic hype as we move forward in the coming weeks.
Well, that's great. That's exciting.
Oh yeah.
Dude, I'm stoked.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, right. Dude, how fun is this game? I'm telling you.
So much fun.
Yeah, like this is cool stuff. Like we're alive at a time that we get this. And also thank you guys for being on the show. But did you guys check out that telescope image of the universe, man?
Yes.
Come on.
Oh yeah.
Like, talk about a time to be alive. Talk about just like having an existential crisis, being like, wow, this is serious. Did not expect goosebumps from a photo on Twitter. I was like,
cool.
Anyways, guys, thank you so much for being.
It's been a pleasure, guys.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Until next time, take care.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yes.
Ready Layer 1 is provided for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only, without any express or implied warranty of any kind, including warranties of accuracy, completeness, or fitness for any particular purpose. You should not make any decision, financial, investment, trading, or otherwise based on any of the information presented in this podcast without undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with a professional broker or financial advisory.